So those of you who paid $38 to offset your flight, if that offset was planting a tree, how do you monitor if this little sapling actually offsets a ton of carbon or 2 tons of carbon dioxide, depending on where you flew from? You have to monitor that tree for a good 50 years if you really want to know it. So it's not a problem that's exclusive to adaptation, but also on the mitigation side, ecosystem approaches. Anyway, that was just because the question was asked. I'm going to be talking about UNEP's adaptation program very broadly, including our EBA flagship work. As you know, this is a slide I made some time ago in 2010. CO2 emissions reached a record high. They also reached a record high at a record rate, so they went up faster than they've ever gone before. Not only that, according to the IEA, International Energy Agency, 80% of the projected power sector 2020 emissions were locked in. This was a very bad scenario for the atmosphere in 2010. And just to remind you that 2010 was nothing special. Sure enough, 2011, another year later, we hit another record. And this is despite the fact that emissions decreased in both the United States and Europe. So we still had a 3.2% increase to now we're producing 31 billion tons. I just told you how many tons your flight is, so think about how many flights that is. Well, so that's to start off with kind of the bad news, that we haven't made much progress on mitigation, on decreasing the amount of CO2 going into the atmosphere, and therefore adaptation is going to be and is a very urgent challenge, as was highlighted by heads of state in the Rio+20 conference in Rio just a few months ago, an urgent challenge which we all need to address. So how is UNEP going about that? We have 4 main pillars of adaptation work. I'll very briefly talk about our network, Global Adaptation Network, then the EBA demonstration projects that we have going, many of them together with IUCN and other partners. Our work in helping countries and in the future municipalities and other organizational units in government obtain money to do adaptation work, and a little bit about generating the research community, which Bernal just talked about, how we're trying to harness the research community. So the Global Adaptation Network, very briefly, it's an attempt to bring people together, share best practices, avoid maladaptation, practitioners mostly, and it's very much a regional set of networks. There is really not much in the way of global meetings or bazaars or jamborees for this kind of work. A very strong Asia-Pacific Adaptation Network. They meet each year. We 800 practitioners getting together, and similarly in other regions. I'm sorry, I'm going a little fast. I'll slow down. Each of these regional networks puts out reports, has websites. I just show you one example from Central and South America and one from Asia Pacific. Now to move on to ecosystem-based adaptation, noting the comment we already had in the room, approach versus adaptation, I'll just briefly say we also have at UNEP an ecosystem approach to disaster risk reduction. We also have the approach to ecosystem management. So I just agree with Angela's comment that we want to highlight here for these purposes that the problem at hand is adapting to climate change. Very broadly, and not to repeat what Angela already made very clear, many ecosystems on the planet are under multiple threats. Climate is only one of many, and sometimes a minor threat. Here is a coral reef off Australia, for example, under threat from warming waters, from acidification, from agricultural runoff, sediments and nutrients, from fishing, from tourism. I don't even list climate on there, while warming is a climate signal. Agricultural runoff is one of the worst ones for this coral ecosystem, which leads to the interesting conundrum that sometimes if the climate signal is impacting your best tractable ecosystem-based approach is sometimes looking at something not in the coral reefs, so in the agricultural landscapes where the runoff is coming from, and not specifically climate, but that might be your best bet in terms of trying to reduce the threat on this particular ecosystem. There are also multiple benefits to these ecosystem approaches. They include climate resilience, they also include biodiversity wins, and they also include a broad suite of ecosystem services preserved for any number of reasons. In the case of, we won't go into any detail here. To remind you what we're talking about, Ed already talked about, sometimes there's a polarization between sort of bricks and mortar type solutions to adaptation, to reducing their risk, versus softer ecosystem approaches. And we very much see this as always an integrated package and try to break down that distinction. Just one example of what I mean by integrated. This is a number of dams in Sudan that I'm showing you. These have largely been built for water security and energy needs. But if you look at the current state of a number of these dams here, I show you when they were put in place, why they were put in place. And if you look at the end of the capacity loss column, this is due to sedimentation in these dam reservoirs. And this sedimentation is largely driven by the fact that the upstream ecosystems, riparian ecosystems, have been degraded, and sedimentation rates are very high. So this is just an example where, yes, build the dams. Micro dams, by the way, are even worse than these, are more sedimented. These are the big dams. Build the micro dams, but think about, complementary to that, managing the upstream ecosystems to decrease the cost of the dams and increase their lifetime, increase their efficacy. This is when I was, as some of you may have been, in Durban at the Climate Change Talks, COP17, where we again did not make my progress on mitigation and took a stroll down by the beach and snapped this with my cell phone, so I apologize if you can't read the text, I'll read it to you. This was a nice little walk along the shore in Durban, right in an urban area. Benefits of dune vegetation, contributes towards an attractive environment, reduces the impacts of windblown sand, provides a habitat for birds, reptiles, insects, and animals, promotes biodiversity, and then the very last bullet provides some protection against sea surges and erosion. So the reason I highlight that is, again, I'm showing you the multiple benefits. It's only the last bullet here where they talk about the climate impact, sea level rise, and the many other ecosystem service benefits from this type of ecosystem-based adaptation project. This is just one example I walked across one day. I promised to talk very briefly about our helping countries obtain funding. We serve two roles at UNEP. One is as a multilateral implementing entity where we assist countries in putting together proposals to the GEF and other climate change funding mechanisms. And for those countries that wish to have direct access, we also have a support program where we assist them in gaining accreditation to the Adaptation Fund on their own. So we have been very successful. We have in both the GEF and the Adaptation Fund, and we are preparing now for the upcoming potential Green Climate Fund. So helping countries the way they see fit to get to receive funds, and as one of the speakers already said, try to use those funding to build the national capacity to continue their work. Just a broad set of examples. I'll talk very briefly about this EBA and Mountain Regions projects, which we are implementing together with UNDP and IUCN. We also have a project in the Nile. This is a very complex project with 13 countries sharing a water resource, using it for energy needs, using it for freshwater needs. We have projects in other countries, and we're trying now to develop, I got it, 1 or 2 more minutes, some ecosystem-based adaptation projects in places where a lot of people live. One of the criticisms we always get from the community-based adaptation community is we're just trying to protect nature and we don't care about people. Nothing could be further from the truth. So we're developing a project in peri-urban areas to show how protecting ecosystems in peri-urban areas in Asian megacities can directly benefit large numbers of urban poor. We have a policy brief.